Hi, I'm Barbara Lucas, and welcome to the Green Room, where we explore the environmental topics that green up our world. Today's guests are Bob Krzewinski and Larry Deck, board members of the Washtenaw Bicycling and Walking Coalition. We'll be talking about changes to our built environment to make biking and walking safer for the residents of Washtenaw County. Larry and Bob, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having us.
Thank you.
So Bob, tell me, is there really a safety problem with pedestrians and bicyclists?
Yes, a very real safety problem, and it's continuing year after year. The latest statistics on the state of Michigan are that there's been, in 2014, there were 148 pedestrians killed, and when hit by cars, 21 bicyclists, and in Ann Arbor, it averaged 55 pedestrian crashes per year for the 5-year period from 2010 to 2014.
It's a lot.
Yes.
So I hear a lot about this built environment. The word infrastructure is thrown out, and I used to think of infrastructure in terms of like bridges and tunnels and big things like that. So Larry, can you tell me how that relates to pedestrians and bicyclists?
For bicycling, some of the key things are things like bike lanes in urban areas, paved shoulders in rural areas, and trails, non-motorized trails, for example, the border-to-border trail, which are away from road corridors. And then, of course, sidewalks for pedestrians and crosswalks.
And Bob, what would make a bike lane a good bike lane?
Oh, first of all, being wide enough. The standards call for 5-foot bike lanes, which gives plenty of room to have bicyclists safely ride along the road. And just well maintained too. We don't like potholes, just like automobiles don't like potholes. So, just the wideness of it, and also the maintenance, I would say, are paramount.
What about how connected they are? Because I know, for instance, I go down Division to get to my house, and I'll be going along nice bike lane. All of a sudden, it disappears. It just zooms off, and it doesn't feel very useful if it stops suddenly.
Yeah, lots of times there's engineering challenges, and it's if you think of like the interstate highway system, it wasn't all built in one big swoop.
That's
Often,
true.
Sections are put in, and then as more money becomes available, the more problematic areas are completed. So bike lanes are great because, we often hear of cyclists being told to get off the road. Well, we'd like to share the road, but the truth is, in a lot of cases, there isn't enough money to build bike lanes and roads, and you're stuck with just roads. So,
one of the things we've been working towards is connectivity, connectivity of bike lanes, paved shoulders, and trails into an interconnected system so that people can get where they want to go.
Yeah, you hear about sidewalk gaps being an issue too for pedestrians.
Yeah, that's an important issue, and we've made some progress on that. There's still a long way to go on that.
But what's even more of a problem if you're disabled and you don't have sidewalks to travel on. I mean, they can be monumental. It can stop your way of life, literally, if you can't get to merchants or businesses, because you're in a wheelchair and there's not a place to go.
Are these concepts, do they pit motorists against non-motorists?
No, I would say not. I mean, we have this concept calling sharing the road, and it works both ways. We like to have cyclists share the road with motorists, and motorists share the road with bicyclists. There is room for everybody out there. It just takes some education.
And it seems like congestion's an issue too. If we can reduce congestion, getting more people riding and walking too, I guess most trips are under a mile or 2 at the very most, and that if we can get those people actually walking or biking more, it'll be less congestion for all of us.
Right. You hear about the modern studies coming out that an ideal community to live in is one where you can park your car and leave it parked. You can bike or you can walk to just about anywhere you want to go. And it's so much less stressful if you're biking or walking to a place rather than hopping in that car and being stuck in bumper-to-bumper traffic.
Not only does it reduce congestion, but it makes it more fun for everybody to get around. And it also attracts young people, and that's something we need to do here in Michigan.
One of the principles of the Washtenaw Bicycling and Walking Coalition is connections of centers of population, employment, education, shopping, and recreation. And I often think of the border-to-border trail as a recreational amenity for biking and walking. But how is it also a, how would it connect people to centers of employment and education?
Well, like the border-to-border trail, for those not familiar with it, it's like a center spine going through the county with non-motorized access. It basically follows the Huron River from the northwest side of the county to the east side of the county. And going off of that, you have a lot of spur routes. So, I mean, right now on the completed border-to-border trail, you can go from Ypsilanti to St. Joe's Hospital, to Washtenaw Community College, to the VA Hospital, to the University of Michigan. It's all connected right now. So we're trying to expand those connections so more population areas can filter in using this master trail.
And North Campus too is
Yes.
really close to it. I guess there's some problems down by Maiden Lane and Fuller by the hospital there. Can you address the issues there?
Yeah, well, it's long been planned to have some non-motorized connections in that area, but they haven't yet been built. We've been working with officials to try to get some of those built to improve the connectivity of the border trail there, and also to improve the connection between North Campus and Central Campus, because currently there's no good way to bicycle between the two campuses that's both safe and efficient.
That would be great, because you need to go between the two so often. And you know, they have a good bus system, but it would be healthier to ride it, for one thing.
Healthier and often quicker to bike, actually,
Yeah.
than taking a
Well,
bus.
that's a good point too.
With some relatively minor investments, those connections can be made.
Yeah, I went on your tour that you gave a bunch of them, I guess, showing people underneath the bridge there where there's the ability to connect pretty easily. And I thought of our trip to Austin, Texas, where we went on these amazing connections over the bridge to the shopping district to get over the river. And they were so beautifully done that they were a tourist attraction in themselves. I mean, they had wonderful landscaping and artwork all over, you know, so I thought, wow, there's an opportunity here. Not just, you know, in terms of utility, but
Well, it's like what's done in the city of Ann Arbor too with the Argo Cascades area. That's part
Right.
of the border trail. It's one of the most beautiful areas in the county to go to, and it's great. So people are flocking to that area
they
for
sure
walks.
are. Yep. So we're not just talking about people that can't drive, right? We're talking about also people like myself who are trying to go from 2 cars to 1 car. So it sounds like it's going to be beneficial to everyone to have this kind of infrastructure. Let's talk about some more examples. For instance, road diets. Bob, what are those?
Road diets are simply putting a road from, let's say, 4 lanes to 2 lanes with a center turn lane and bicycle lanes. And the main advantage of this is for motorists, believe it or not, because what it does is that center turn lane prevents rear end collisions from people not watching where they're going. You know, you have a car ahead of you turning left, and all of a sudden, you know, they're putting on the brakes and maybe crashing into your rear end. So also you know, reducing 2 lanes down to 1 means that the issue of side swipes with cars that are off there. And you know, you do have the bike lanes, but you know, there's more to adding bike lanes. Or you know, you have basically look at it as also as a very wide shoulder, where in an emergency you can pull off. Emergency vehicles can, you know, to get around you better. You know, it helps with the pavement from falling apart. You know, traditionally the pavement starts going from the edges inward, you know, falling apart like that because of water erosion. So you know, there's various multiple reasons why. You know, wider roads and road diets really work well.
I was reading that the city of Ypsilanti was looking to do road diets to decrease speeds of the motorists instead of, I guess because the state is not letting them reduce posted speeds.
Right.
So they're trying to change the environment, and I guess road diets help that way.
You know, study after study has shown that if a motorist has a perception even that a road is narrower, they tend to slow down a little bit more. I mean, you know, just think of it. If you got a great big wide road, you know, there's nothing stopping you. But if it's narrow and you got to really pay attention to what's going on, you tend to go a little bit slower and be more cautious.
How's that different from a bicycle boulevard?
Bicycle boulevards, from what I've seen and what I've read, are basically low-density roads, not very busy, that encourage bicyclists to use them to get off main, more heavily used roads where you're maybe mixing in with traffic a little bit more. So I think anybody would rather bike on a very quiet road than, you know, something with traffic zinging around you over and over.
And I've heard that they're looking at doing that on Washington Street. What would they need to do to get a boulevard there?
A lot of it is just plain signage and education, you know, that, you know, to motorists that if you're driving down this road, expect to see a lot of bicyclists.
And then there's crosswalks are an issue for the Bicycling and Walking Coalition. What is going on in terms of crosswalks?
Well, we've tried to raise the issue of design and where to put mid-block crosswalks. The idea of crosswalks at intersections is pretty well understood, but crosswalks in middle of blocks, there needs to be work on how they're built to make them clear to motorists and pedestrians, and education to both drivers and pedestrians about how to use them. There's been good progress in Ann Arbor, but again, we have a long way to go in getting those set up to be safe and well understood.
Seems like there needs to be something that warns drivers that a crosswalk is coming, because, for instance, I was driving down Getty's the other day going into town, and I saw somebody approaching a crosswalk, so I stopped. First I checked my rearview mirror to make sure a car wasn't right behind me, and there wasn't. So I stopped for the pedestrian, but the car behind me still did not like it. And he honked at me twice. He was very angry that I had stopped for the pedestrian. And I think he was surprised. He just didn't, he wasn't expecting me to stop.
Yeah, that's part of the education issue for people to know what to look for at a crosswalk. Adequate signage so that people can see that they're coming. And enforcement is part of that too, so that if people don't observe crosswalks, there's consequences for that.
And we hear about distracted driving all the time, but pedestrians have to also be aware that there is such a thing called distracted walking.
True.
And
True.
They have to be aware of what's going on with them with traffic too.
And distracted biking too. Bikers should be alert and be listening to things. They shouldn't be biking with headphones on. And
True.
So on.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier, Bob, winter maintenance. Isn't our climate too cold for riding in the winter?
Oh, no, not at all. You'll see, especially with the city of Ann Arbor with the Get Downtown program, every winter they have a winter cycling commute encouragement. Some communities are unbelievable. Like Minneapolis has one of the highest rates of bicycling in the world for over the winter time. So
really?
It can be done with the proper clothing and proper precautions, and keeping in mind that you are riding at night, being lit up, in front and rear. So.
Good point.
Yeah, it sounds formidable, but it's actually relatively easy once you have what you need.
And it's a great cabin fever breaker too.
Okay, so what about construction detours, Bob?
Well, you know what, if you're a motorist and there's a detour, you almost expect that detour. You know, signage and directions, but quite often in construction projects for bicyclists and pedestrians, it's a second thought or not even given any thought at all. So you might have a sidewalk that all of a sudden abruptly ends in front of a construction project. You're left to your own on how to get safely around there, and then especially towards the wintertime with shorter days, it could be very treacherous, and trying to do these homemade detours. So we're trying to encourage traffic engineers and construction people to do common sense detours for pedestrians and cyclists.
So you've mentioned a lot of different things that without a whole lot of money could make things a whole lot safer. So I really appreciate this introduction to infrastructure. How can we get more information on this?
Well, the Washtenaw Bicycling and Walking Coalition website, wbwc.org, has a lot of information about this whole issue. We have a link there to a map that we've created of priority projects countywide that we think are important for the connectivity of the network. And a lot of other information on the website. So that's one place to start.
Yeah, and another, with the border to border being a hot topic, we got the Friends of the Border to Border website. It's just bordertoborder.org.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being here today. It's been great.
Okay,
Thank you.
For an online archive of today's show, go to ewashtenaw.org/greenroom. Thanks for joining us here in the Green Room.